We are now video casting along with podcasting, so you can hear us, you can see us, you can talk to us.
Sound like a TV show.
We will be talking about the Coaches Roundtable.
And I see half of the game here, half of the game there, because I want to get eyes on these teams that we're ranking. Doesn't it? I just wanted to ask.
Freaking ugly.
Asking for a friend. You're really on me there, Winston. Welcome to the Main Street Studios here at the Ute Conference. Today, in a brand new episode, we're bringing back Sean Cosper, our Executive Vice President. You met him earlier talking about game day experiences on a previous episode. But Sean, there's another couple things we want to talk about.
Okay.
We have changed a lot over the last few years in the way we schedule our games. And do you like it or you don't like it?
I love it. I think it's been one of the best things we've done in a long time. I think for many reasons I could go on and on, but I think it creates a great opportunity for teams to play comparable talent throughout the back half of the season. And it just does a lot for the experience of the kids. I think it's great.
So for you guys that are brand new, it used to be that the Ute Conference would schedule 8 or 9 games in a row, and then we'd play a 2-week playoff system. The schedule was preset, and your schedule was your schedule. But then when we started looking in somewhere in 15, 16, 17, our margin of victory in these games was well in excess of 30 points a game.
Yeah.
So the question I beg is, do we want 30-point blowouts in our games? Is it good for one team and not for another? Or is it good for coaches' egos? Or what was the benefit of that? So to explain how we do it, in the last 2 years, we put you into a 5-game set. And then at the end of those 5 weeks, we would reset and get like talent playing like talent. So the top 8 teams would be playing the top 8 teams. Or actually, it'd be the top 16 teams in that reset. And then you go down to the next 16, the next 16, the next 16. And then from that 16, you'd take the top 8, put them in the playoffs together, the next 8 in the playoffs together, the next 8, all the way down. So we created our Bull Championship Series, which is everything underneath the Ute Conference, and the top 8 is the Ute Conference. It's pretty successful. Overwhelmingly, the coaches like it a lot because once we hit that reset, our margin of victory goes down to under 10 points a game. When we get into playoffs, this year we had 1 week that the margin of victory was 5 points per game. That's pretty incredible. So here, buckle up. Who says that? Buller? Buckle up. In the conference, in the past, in those first 5 weeks, we had all the A teams of Cyprus playing all the A teams
Of another district.
Granger, Hunter, whoever was in their division. And then we'd have a couple crossover games. Well, we now have so much data on hand that what if we took the top 24, the next 24, and the next 24, and we made divisions out of those? So your number 1 ranked team from 2021 would be playing the 24, the 16, they'd get 5 games there, and then we go from that and then create 16 down to 8. Because the goal would be, instead of the number 1 team playing the number 48 team, which is possible, getting closer margins of victory in the first 5 weeks of the season. Now, you haven't heard this before, have you?
No.
Initial thoughts?
Well, I love it because I think if we're truly trying to enhance the experience for the kids, this gives, margin of victory. No, like you said, no one wins when there's a 35-point blowout. It doesn't matter if it's game 1 or game 12. That is a true natural law to football. And so I feel like, what do you get out of it? It doesn't really matter when you have a home game who your opponents are. If your opponents are all from the same district, or if your opponents are from different districts, that has nothing to really do with anything. That's no big deal for me. I feel like this would allow the kids to play like opponents in that first group. I think it's still important to have a reset if you do this, because I think things change from year to year. You may have a team that was dominant the prior year, and then maybe they slipped a little bit. Maybe they lost a couple kids, or maybe some other teams caught up with them, and they're just not quite as dominant. And so maybe they, for whatever reason, there's a lot of reasons why teams can change from year to year, but I think that affords teams the opportunity at a reset if they're too high or too low. For example, my team last year was a good example of that. The year before, that was the first year we had a team at that age group, and we had almost all first-year players. Brand new kids, first year to football. It was late in their development. They were already gridiron age, and so we struggled a little bit that first year. We were still competitive, and we ended up having a great season, and it was a great experience. But then last year, we stepped up a notch, and we were even a little bit better last year than we were the previous year. So we were fighting at a higher weight level that second year, and I think that's going to happen. You get a few players that are, maybe someone moves in, or you talk a kid in, that you recruit a kid that you've been recruiting for a long time, and he finally decides
recruiting. Hopefully they were in your own boundaries.
Recruiting from baseball, or recruiting from soccer, or ice hockey, whatever. That's what I mean. You know what I mean. So, you're getting a kid, a great athlete. That's what football's all about, right? Is putting exceptional athletes on the field, and sometimes that is a game changer for a team when you get a kid all of a sudden that is an elite athlete and can play, and you can teach him quickly how to play the game, and so that changes how good teams are. And I think this is a great format. I love it.
I actually go back to your team. I actually feel like your team was better than you were.
We were.
If you didn't have 28 players on your team.
No, we had 33 players.
Oh, 33.
Yeah.
That's a tough number.
Yeah.
That's a really tough number. Could you have split that team?
Yeah, and we could have. And, we talked about that. And we just felt like we got surprised a little bit. We had so much success the previous year. We had so much momentum that we had a lot more kids unexpectedly show up. And then we also had some problems at the high school, with coaching, and kids didn't want to go up and play at the high school. So we had a few more older kids that were down, that were first-year kids. Most of them were all first-year kids. But naturally, now with a coach like Andrew Jones at Viewmont, even those first-year kids, he's going to get them to come and play with him. And so it creates a different, atmosphere. And so we did it for a reason. In hindsight, would it have been good to split that team? It probably would have been a good thing, but we just didn't have the coaching and the organization to do it, and so we didn't want to do that to the kids.
No, and I get it, and I understand that. But let me. It's interesting because John and I, going through all the stats, going through everything. Being out on fields on Saturday, watching everybody play, because most Saturdays I'm at 4 fields. I'm everywhere, and I see half of a game here, half of a game there, because I want to get eyes on these teams that we're ranking. But since last year, all through while we redid the office here, we were talking about this new type of format and could it work? What would be the pitfalls? Because from our standpoint, because people are so critical, we have to look at everything bad that can go wrong, along with what could possibly be good that could come out of it. But we get this up on our sounding board. And let me just read you part of it. Says, hello, everyone. I'd love to see the structure of the division realignments modified. I believe that the goal of realignment is to find the best competition for every skill level. With each realignment, the competitive gap should hopefully narrow. With that being said, I propose the following. So he goes through this big formula. It's similar to what I just kind of in theory threw out to you, but he gets too many. There's not enough teams in there because you got a team hypothetically. We look at the data from the last 2 years. We say this team's number 24, but what we don't know, to your point, is they had a kid move in from California. They had a kid move in from Texas, from New Jersey, which happens every year. We got an influx of kids coming in. All of a sudden, they got a stud player. That team's no longer 24. It's knocking on the door of top 8, 9, or 10. So we have to have a realignment. We have to have that reset. Now, the negatives. What are going to be the negatives to doing this? We get better competition, but what are going to be the negatives in the eyes of parents?
Well, I think, if they're playing an away game, then they have potentially multiple stops to make on one Saturday if they have more kids than one kid playing in the
That could happen potentially on a home game too. Because hypothetically, let's take just a random thing. Viewmont is playing Woods Cross in Bantams, and both Viewmont and Woods Cross is scheduled for home games that day. We can't get every team at home like we could when.
That's true.
And so that's going to be a little bit of a logistical nightmare when you're dealing with 185 games a Saturday. Away, there's a really good chance that your district isn't all playing together. So there is going to be multiple stops. But the question I raise to you is having better competitive, more competitive games with the margin of victory coming down more important than having sons play. I got a peewee, I got a gridiron on the same field. Now, agree or disagree, a lot of parents, depending on their level of competition, are going to answer that question differently.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's probably the great sticking point. I think most of us would understand and agree that margin of victory is the most important, probably one of the more important factors in this equation. And because again, nobody wins in a 35-point blowout on either team. But if you have 3 kids playing and you've got multiple kids playing at the same time in different locations, or back to back at different times, you want to be able to see those kids play. Then that does create an issue.
I loved it because at one point, and my wife was really mad at me this year, I had 3 boys playing football on 3 different teams, and I coached the juniors. She didn't like being the taxi cab, but worse than that year, I saw my kids play on video because we would video all of their games. And I vowed I wouldn't do that, but it was one of my youngest sons' times to coach him, but I figured out early on that he couldn't handle Dad as a coach. So I had to make a choice, but I still loved to coach, so I coached a different team, got 2 other boys playing, got games going on everywhere, and my wife's running around like a chicken with her head cut off. But we get it. We understand that, and we're not trying to maliciously go out there and say, it's not rocket science. It's easy. Just put my kids together. Well, you're only looking at it from your own myopic view.
Yeah.
One of the funnest exercises I ever did, and I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but I'm going to share it with all the millions of people that are out there watching today. I had a president, Russ Peterson. I love him to death. He's still the president of Cyprus, one of the best presidents we've ever had in the Ute Conference. He was very upset over the schedule. And I called him up and I said, Ross, when can you come in here? I can come in tomorrow. Great. Come on in. And I had a binder clip full of papers. And he says, dude, here you go. He goes, what? I go, here's your computer. Here's what I get. Create a schedule. I know it's easy. About an hour later, he and I shook, hugged, became friends. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
And the way we do it is just you cannot pull an off-the-shelf scheduling program. I can do that in my sleep to run it. But having kids play in the best football games to enhance their game day experience by playing in games that matter. Again, John and I have been debating this for 3-4 months now, saying, wouldn't you want your kids playing in top-notch games where they're learning the game? Because, yeah, everybody needs a blowout now and then. But if you're the receiving team of the blowout, what good is it?
Yeah.
Then we have kids wanting to quit, wanting to forfeit. Oh, I'm not playing this game. And now, one last thing before I let you go today. It's amazing to me that the name on the jersey, the end result of the game is already predetermined before they get on the field because I have to go play Corner Canyon or I have to play in this format. Let's say Harriman has 6 teams in their A division. 4 of the 6 teams are really good, one's mediocre, and one's really bad. But because my name is South Summit over here, and I have to be matched up against Harriman, we make this assumption that because of the name on the jersey, that team's really good. Do you ever see that happen?
All the time. All the time. We have a great example of that is that Park City team last year. You know, Park City's
in Bantams.
In Bantams. Park City's a smaller district, and you know, they've been a good team for a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
So they
very well coached.
Very well coached. They have a lot of respect, but you know, they always every game they fought way above their pay grade, and that's a great example. You can't make it.
No, John and I stood at their championship game against Copper Hills. That's a really good football team that's very well coached.
Yeah.
And Copper Hills was here, and they were here.
Yeah. Size, everything.
I mean, but I'll tell you what, the team executed, played hard, and did what their coach asked. Yeah. And they kept their mouths shut, and they just played football. That was a really good football team. You played them twice, I think.
Yeah, we did.
What was the score on both those games?
6-0.
6-0.
They were really tough games. The second game was in that weekend when we had the torrential downpour rain, and it was a fun game. Just a great game.
Well, just an idea that we're bantering around. We are looking to propose this to the coaches in this coaches meeting coming up on the 24th of February. We think quality of games is more important, and we'll do everything in our power to put as many teams on the home fields as possible. Sometimes it's not possible. Now, we got another situation, and I got to throw this in here. You know, we can talk for hours, but sometimes you only have 1 or 2 fields and you got 12 or 13 teams. Not everybody gets a home game. And it's really difficult. And this would change up the way we have played football for 55 years by doing this reset at the beginning.
I think if you have the data to do it, then I think we should really look at doing it. And I think it will enhance the experience from day one versus after the 5-game reset.
So proposal is from Jeff to the executive board of how we reschedule and retool this year, because what our goal is to take it to the next level. We're taking it to the next level with these podcasts, with the video cast. We're looking at a bunch of other options out there. We want the best. We want the Ute Conference to not just be a conference you go play football in. We want it to be the best in the country. Jeff Gorange, Sean Cosper, Executive Vice President of the Ute Conference, thank you for your time. John, Marcus, you guys are awesome. Well, one of you is awesome.
Thanks for letting me be here, Jeff.
We're out.
Thanks.